So the Cleveland Colectivo is a giving circle. We are a group of community members, most of whom live in the city of Cleveland, and we give small grants to organizations who are kind of in their very early stages. So what we really try to do is identify organizations that need a little bit of a boost. So they may not yet have 501c3 status, they may be early stage for-profit businesses, and what we're really trying to do is identify organizations that are doing positive things or want to start doing positive things in the city. Most of what we end up investing in really at the end of the day are champions. So people we really believe in who have a cool, innovative, interesting idea to do something to help the city, to make it a better place. A lot of people are doing things that are maybe just confined to their actual neighborhood or to some specific area that they're passionate about. But we believe that they've got the drive, they've got the innovation, and we think they can pull it off. So we end up serving them a little bit of money. And we really don't give large grants. We're a giving circle. Altogether, we raise between $12,000 and $13,000 a year. So we're usually trying to identify organizations that need somewhere in the order of $1,500, maybe $2,000, to sort of get them up to the next level. Most of these organizations are flying under the radar of a typical foundation. So we're not able to, they have a harder time going after the traditional streams of funds, and so we're sort of trying to plug in and say, hey, we think what you're doing is cool, we'd like to help you kind of get to the next level, so here's $1,500. We've even given grants as little as $400, $750, but it's all about finding that sort of one cool nugget of an idea, putting some money toward it, and then seeing what kind of impact it can make. And we've been doing this now we just completed our 10th year of giving, and have given over, I think, $120,000 to organizations throughout the Cleveland area, but focused specifically on people doing things in the city of Cleveland. And we've seen some really great impact. It's been a really exciting thing to be a part of, and we've seen like Nicole McGee, who has a shop called the Upcycle Parts Shop. We gave her money just to move her studio from her house to an actual studio space. That allowed her to scale up her business a little bit and to put she does artistic reuse of materials that otherwise would end up in a landfill. So we allowed her to scale up a little bit, to start opening up her boutiques that are called Collective Upcycle, and then eventually land in this great space on St. Clair called the Upcycle Parts Shop. And now she does all sorts of community-oriented things. She continues to run her boutique, the Collective Upcycle. But again, it was, I think, maybe a $1,500 grant we gave her just so she could secure some studio space and sort of take her vision and her business to the next level. So it's a perfect example of the kind of organizations we invest in, people who want to do something positive in the city, who have a really cool, innovative idea that can push things forward to help grow community, and it gets us all super jazzed and excited, and we throw them some money. So it's been super fun and interesting work. I will say, as a member who was there at the very beginning, I had no idea what kinds of organizations would come to us, what kinds of people would seek us out, and even after doing it for 10 years, I have yet to be not inspired by things that people are doing, people who I would otherwise have never been connected to. I would have never known the kind of work they're doing in their neighborhoods. And again, these are often very small scale projects, very modest. They're not trying to grab a lot of press or do something really flashy. They're trying to actually make a real difference in their neighborhood and do something cool and different to move the city forward. So personally, it's been hugely inspirational and hugely satisfying. And it's been a real exercise in community building on multiple levels. So for the group that came together to initially found the Colectivo, we got together, we sort of had this idea of wanting to do something impactful in the city. Our friend who convened us initially had found out about this giving circle model, so we sort of explored it more and researched some of the different models and came up with the one that worked best for us. But that in and of itself, just convening that group and having us work together on this has been one form, right, of building community, staying connected to other people who are interested in doing civic engagement and want to stay tapped into, you know, the cool things happening in the city and continue to make it a better place. And frankly, it's been really fun because a lot of those people who were there at the beginning were friends of mine, but I've met people through it who have become good friends of mine, and we just enjoy getting together. We enjoy each other, and even though a lot of the people at the beginning knew each other and were friends or knew each other through similar networks, we've had new people come in over the years. So I would say a lot of the more involved people now weren't even there at the beginning. They just found out about us, they came to our meetings, they started getting involved, and now they're friends of mine. So just getting to kind of expand my personal network and engage with people who themselves are doing interesting things in the city and also want to make the city a better place. That's been, you know, hugely satisfying, just from a social, personal standpoint. And again, I think we've been able to build sort of our own community through that. But then the other piece is the sort of outreach component of the work, which is us pooling our money, but then reaching out to, you know, in a very public, open-ended way. I mean, anyone who's interested in applying for money to the Colectivo is welcome. And we've then been able to obviously engage beyond our, you know, Giving Circle community into the greater Cleveland community to find out all the cool things people do. And the other really neat thing is that we've continued to evolve our process. So whereas our initial process when we were first finding people to give grants to, we were doing, I would say, more of a traditional kind of RFP, asking people to answer a few preliminary questions about their project, and then we would read through those initial requests and then extend an invitation to a smaller group of people to give us a more detailed explanation of their project and what they intended to do with money from us. And we've evolved the sort of front end of the process into what we have called a fast pitch event. And that's sort of become more and more kind of popular, and we've seen other organizations, I mean, not that they were trying to copy us, I'm sure, but we've seen other organizations expand into this model. But the cool thing about the fast pitch event is that then it brought all these different groups together who were doing these cool things into a venue. We held it was like a 2.5-hour event on a weeknight. And the past couple times we've done it, it was hosted at Launch House, which is a business incubator on the east side of Cleveland in Shaker. So perfect kind of venue because they're doing the same kind of stuff. And so just the excitement of bringing all these different people together who have these cool ideas, and they got to all sit around and listen to each other's pitches. So not only was it gratifying and fun for our group to sort of turn the front end of our process into an event, really, but it also allowed all these groups to hear from each other, and I think is a hugely sort of dynamic networking kind of you know, incubator, cross-fertilization community kind of event where people can find out what each other were doing. I mean, I know at our event people made connections that might not have otherwise, that I hope, whether or not they ended up getting money from us, but I hope that helped them move to the next level. And we do have some examples of people, just by virtue of having pitched to us, that they sort of helped them, right, get some more solid framework around their idea and move their idea forward, whether or not they eventually became a recipient of Colectivo funds. So, so kind of that evolution of our group has been really exciting. So the future of the Colectivo, I will say we are kind of, having gone through 10 years of giving, we are actually in the process of planning a retreat this fall to do some reflection, frankly. I think there are different schools of thought about, you know, what we should be and where we should go next. It's interesting because when we started this thing, there was no such thing as Kickstarter. There was no such thing as crowdfunding. There's even an organization in Cleveland now called Cleveland Soup, which I think originated in Pittsburgh, but now there's a Cleveland chapter. I think there's some activity around that in Detroit also. So those are basically, Cleveland Soup is just a big dinner party where everyone shows up, they throw $20 in a hat, they have 4 or 5 people pitch an idea, and the crowd decides which idea they like the best, and somebody walks away with a couple $1,000s. I mean, that is just an innovation on our model. So I think we're trying to understand now sort of where do we fit in. Does what we do continue to have meaning? Which, I mean, I personally believe it does, but how do we perhaps, continue to evolve, or how do we find kind of the next thing that we want to do? One of the things I'm advocating for now, and that we're going to be having a meeting on in a couple of weeks here, is starting what we're doing with kids. And my informal name for it is the Kid Colectivo, but really, taking probably 8, 9, 10-year-olds. I mean, I think we want them to be old enough to sort of understand the concept, but have them think about, okay, what does it mean for me to pool my money, and how could I identify some local organizations that I might want to give money to, and sort of starting that idea of, philanthropy and giving and embedding that right in the next generation, I think could be super fun. I think the kids would really take to it, and I'm sure have a whole new spin even on what we're doing. So I'm really excited to get that started. There's several other people in the group who are parents who want to be engaged in that work. So that's a real fun kind of next step that I see for the Colectivo. And my hope is, frankly, that maybe draws some more adults in, or parents that we haven't been able to reach out to in the past. I think we've got a great model, and we've got sort of a nice, solid 20 to 25 people who are consistent contributing members. But I think there's some thought that we need to think about how to continue to expand that circle. We've fought against ourselves a bit on that in the past, because expanding requires work, and we are an all-volunteer organization, so we were trying to keep the scale manageable. But I think there's different ways that we can, either through this Kid Colectivo or other type of outreach things, that maybe could get more people into our circle and help us continue to evolve and innovate. We don't want to keep doing the same thing. Even our fast pitch event, which is a super great, fantastic event. I mean, a lot of people are doing fast pitch events. So we want to try to figure out how to keep staying on the cutting edge, and keep doing good work and keep identifying those cool projects, but finding different and new ways to do it. So I'm not sure I have a solid roadmap or a specific idea about where we're going next, but I think there's still a lot of passion around the idea, and a lot of people who really enjoy the work. So it's just a matter of figuring out what is really the next step, and how do we keep what we're doing fresh and interesting. So one of the things I wanted to talk a little bit about that I think is innovative about what we do is our process. I talked about the fast pitch as sort of the early, where we initially vet a lot of our applicants, and then from that event we narrow down a pool and decide on a smaller group that we want to hear from in what we call an interview day. So we have them fill out a little more detailed application about their idea, and then they come present to us. They have 10 minutes to talk a little bit about what they want to do, and then we have Q&A with them. And then after that round, we all get together as a group, and we go through a process that is we've actually repeated several times, because I think it works pretty well. And we talk about the different groups that we've heard from, the ones that we feel particularly strongly about, and then make our decisions about how to divide up our money. So I think that there's a big piece here around being sort of the civic dialogue and inclusion, because not only is the dialogue really starts right when the organizations come talk to us and present their ideas, and from there, as I mentioned before, I think that spurs other dialogues, right, and other people, once they start hearing these ideas, they find other ways to connect to each other, and hopefully build those ideas out, whether or not they continue on in our process. But I also think there's something important in the way we do our decision making. We're very deliberate on multiple fronts. So one of them is that to be a giving member of the Colectivo, we ask that you pay into our pool $400 a year. So $100 a quarter, you can have it you can write a check monthly. There's lots of different ways people do it. But in terms of the actual process, we invite anyone to engage in that process at any point in time. The only time that members are sort of called upon to do something different than everyone else is when we're making the final vote about the money. But if you have been engaged, if you've been coming to our events, if you feel passionately about a project, you can show up to our meeting. Even if you're the one who pitched to us, you can show up to our meeting. And we have funded many people who are also members. And that's a big thing that we feel strongly about, that, if you want to be engaged with us and you want to also pitch ideas to us, great. We'd love to have your money as part of the pool, and we'd love to hear about your ideas. So we've really tried to keep it very open. So whoever you are, if you're giving or not giving, we invite you to come be part of our process. And we ask everyone in that decision meeting, every single person has the chance to speak for at least a couple minutes about the projects or organizations they feel most strongly about. So we all get to hear everybody's take, right, on what we just heard and what projects they feel really deserve our money. And then we go through, after we hear from everyone, we go through a voting process where we have big post-it notes up on the wall, and everyone gets stickers, and you put a sticker next to the project that you want. And so depending on how many we're trying to narrow down from, you get 3 stickers or 4 stickers, and then each round of voting, then we have sort of a discussion, right? So we say, okay, it looks like this project over here didn't get any votes. Does anybody want to make a Hail Mary to advocate for it to stay in the pool, or do we as a group decide this is not one we want to move forward with? So it's and then we sort of go through another round of voting, and each time sort of take a step back, look at what the voting sort of told us, right? So again, everybody has that chance to participate in the vote, and then talk about, okay, well, it looks like maybe now we have another one we can lap off, or let's talk about these two that seem to be neck and neck, but does somebody want to say why this one's stronger than that one, or what they were sort of thinking when they put their vote up there. This is a facilitated meeting, so we have someone who's sort of helping us structure the discussion, but it's very, I think it's a fantastic, again, community building exercise, because at the end of the day, we all want the same thing, right? We want cool projects to get some of our money. But people all come at it with different agendas and different things that kind of move them. So people have to advocate for the things that they feel strongly about. And I think that we are I think everyone who comes in that room and engages in the process is very present and attentive and wanting to engage in that dialogue and sometimes debate. I mean, I will say, as someone who's been engaged in this for a long time, I've had plenty of projects that I advocated for that did not move forward. And it's disappointing and can be occasionally frustrating, but we really strive for consensus. We want the whole group to feel good about where we're headed and where we're going. So we do a lot of check-ins, we do a lot of, hey, before we do this, before we take this guy out of the running, who wants to make a last pitch for it? And I personally have gone into a meeting feeling very strongly about certain projects, and through the process of listening to this dialogue and conversation have been swayed and said, wow, no, I think actually they have a point. They saw something in this project that I didn't see. And the other thing that I think makes the process so great is that at the end we have a pool of money, but we're usually figuring out a way to divide it up across multiple projects. So I will say this past year, we sort of challenged ourselves to give a larger grant to a single organization. It was our 10th year. We wanted to do a big gift, so we did a $10,000 gift to one organization called Fresh Camp, and it was very challenging. It was very challenging because every single project that comes to us is so excellent, and it's so hard, I think, for all of us to not want to give money around to everyone, but we also want to give money that we feel is going to be impactful. So we look at their budgets, we decide what kind of money is really going to make a difference, and we want to be cognizant of that, right? As much as these are small grants and they're not going to, make anybody rich or change the tide completely. I mean, for some of these really small organizations, it's this, this $1,200 is going to get them this piece of equipment that will allow them to scale their business to this level, right? So we don't want to give them $700 because they won't get there. So we think strongly about those things, and the trying to decide just one organization to give money to was a really tough situation, and a lot of our members did not like it because it made it harder, I will say, for us to really get to the consensus that we normally enjoy. I think the fact that we often have multiple organizations that we can sort of divvy up money across creates a situation where in the end, even if you didn't get every organization you advocated for, there's usually one or two you feel strongly about that's going to get something, and you're going to get to see go to the next level. So to have to choose just one was a different kind of challenge. But frankly, I think it was a great exercise for us because now we know something we didn't know before. And we gave a nice size $10,000 grant to a really deserving organization that I think is really going to take off from it. So I think, good and bad, right? But I personally see a lot of this as a learning exercise. That's what I love being engaged in. And so even though we came up against something that was a little more difficult, we, I think, learned a lot from it and learned about how we kind of would want to evolve. And I think a lot of people feel like we don't want to ever have to pick a single organization again. But it was a good, I think, exercise for our group to go through. So I wanted to talk a little bit about collaborative leadership because that's something I think we really exemplify in the way we've run this organization. Having been part of lots of different organizations, one of the things I find so fresh and refreshing, I should say, about the Colectivo is that there really is no leadership structure. So I would say at best we have what I would call sort of a de facto board of people who have consistently stayed engaged and helped drive certain initiatives forward. But there is no executive director, there are no fundraising people, there are no staff. We are fully volunteer, and we really, I think, do a nice job trying to spread the work out across different members of the group, and also allowing different people to step up to take leadership roles when there is a need, or if they just raise their hand and say, hey, I know how to do that, like, okay, well then you're our new social media guru because you know how to do that. So that I think has been, from an organizational standpoint, organizational development standpoint, I think is a sort of interesting case study. I mean, granted, being all volunteer maybe helps lend itself to that a little bit. So I don't know if you're an organization with paid staff, if you could figure this out. But we don't. I think it's something that's made us more sustainable. Also, that there isn't one person kind of calling the shots, and there isn't any kind of top-down structure. It's everyone. All of our meetings are all about getting all the voices at the table. Obviously there are people who are more vocal than others and people who are better at expressing themselves verbally than others, but I think everyone who's shown up there feels passionately enough and strongly enough that, if they don't like the way things are going, or if they want to express a contrary opinion, they have the chance to do that. One of the things as we look to evolve after our 10 years is we do, I think, have some sort of people in some more regimented roles, and that's one of the things we're trying to explore a little bit. So again, these are, there's no titles, there's no specific job descriptions, but people have, again, because they've it's the thing they know how to do or the thing they had some time to do, have sort of taken on roles that I think they want to evolve out of. So that's kind of, I would say, maybe a challenge with having this kind of leadership structure or lack thereof, is sort of figuring out now how to evolve ourselves, right? So that different people learn different skills within the organization, so to speak, and we can keep fresh people in certain roles and keep sharing the load. So I think there's been good things and bad things, but I think mostly just knowing that you can come to something that there's no preconceived notions about what you can do or can't do. I mean, if it's your first meeting and you've never been there before and you have a cool idea, we will let you go do it. Like, we don't have any qualms about letting people in and having people step up and take leadership roles. So I think it's been, it's been a great exercise, and I would say case study perhaps in how to make something like that happen and have it really function really well. So it's been fun to see. So I think there's lots of amazing things that have come out of the Colectivo. For the city of Cleveland, we have helped to create and push off a bunch of amazing organizations, and helped people who are doing really cool things in lots of neighborhoods take their vision to the next level. Everything from community youth music programming to the Upcycle Part Shop to Joy Machine's bike shop in Ohio City that we gave a capital gift to help them with a piece of machinery, to murals, public art around the city. I mean, there's a lot of places I can go in the city now and say, hey, the Colectivo had something to do with that. And so that, I think, just the impact to the city, and granted, it remains grassroots, but I think when you do this for long enough, the 10 years you've done it, you've given over $120,000 into the community, I mean, that has an amplifying effect. And I think it's helped, not only people realize a vision that they might not have otherwise gotten to, but it helps lift, right, everybody up, and make the city feel like an exciting place. If you're not supporting those kinds of people who are doing those really at the ground level kinds of projects, you can't move a city forward, and you can't keep building excitement in a city. So I think that's been a big impact. I think there's also been an impact to the people who have participated, and just the general awareness that it's built for us. Several of us have gone on to get more involved in organizations. We have lots of Colectivo members who have then gone on to join the boards of organizations that we've given money to, and just again personally enriching of knowing people in the city that otherwise I would have probably never met or never engaged with. So in terms of this model being transitioned to business, I think that there are definitely some great learnings. I mean, one of the things that is so exciting and fun about this model is this joint ownership idea, right? So we all have skin in the game. We all put some money into this pot, and we all have an investment in what's going to happen to it, right? This is money. This is our money, right? Money that we are earning, right, and then diverting into this pot. It's sort of, some people have equated it to like a community stock market, right? So I could have put that $400 in the stock market and got some sort of return, but instead I put it back in the community and I got a different kind of return, right? I've lifted up my community. I've made some positive changes in the place where I live. And that's, right, perhaps has more value. But so I think that idea of collective ownership is a huge thing that business could benefit from. And more businesses, I mean, you hear about this with employee-owned companies or companies that offer, options as part of their compensation portfolio, of sort of saying, okay, we're all in this, right? This goes well or this goes badly, and we're all gonna take a hit one way or another, right? So either enjoy the upside or take a hit on the downside. And I think that creates a different kind of person walking to your office every day, right? They're not only invested in, doing the job they're supposed to do because of what their job description says, but they actually want to see this whole thing, right, become something good. I think more and more smaller companies and entrepreneurial ventures are sort of moving that way, and I think that there's a lot to be said for people not just showing up to do a job because it's the job, because it's actually something that they want to see be successful, right? So you want an engaged employee, well, put some skin in the game for them, and then make it fun. I think one of the things that I've talked about with sustainability of this thing is that not only, was it initially a group of friends, but that the other people who have joined us have become friends, and that it's an enjoyable group to get together with, right? They're interesting people, they're passionate people, they all have really cool jobs doing other things outside of the Colectivo, but they care about what we're doing, and they want to see, we all sort of have this similar vision. We want to see this thing move forward. So I think getting that, sort of the like-minded people together inside a business, putting some skin in the game, and allowing them to take that collective ownership is huge. I think the collaborative leadership piece is also really big, and that's what I said, having been in a real corporate kind of environment and different work environments where it's a very top-down kind of structure and decisions are made at one level and the execution happens at a different level, that to have people feel like in a corporate or business environment that they're all part of a decision, or that they can drive decisions, or that they can bring ideas to the table, and the organization can say, hey, yeah, sure, let's go do it. I realize that when you're talking revenue and profit and bottom line, there's more risk. So I know that's something companies have to manage and work with, but having some kind of component like that, I think also allows for a level of engagement that can really drive a business forward. And this, again, 10 years, all volunteer. We've sustained this thing. It's been very successful. I think there's something about branding in here. I mean, our brand, I would say, is very strong, and it's strong because it's authentic. We're not trying to be, the next foundation. We're not trying to, dictate any kind of policy or be, push forward any kind of specific idea. Besides, let's try to make cool things happen in our city, and I think people understand that. We're not kind of loud and proud about what we do as much as just deliberate and trying to always identify the right kinds of projects that make sense to us and that we feel passionately about. And it I think has helped people really recognize us as a group that is, sincere about what they're doing. We follow through on what we say we're going to do, and we, really at the end of the day, just want to build community and see cool things happen. So I think that those things together, when you're really sincere and deliberate, you can build a brand that people really care about and believe in, and that's huge from a business standpoint too. And that's what brings customers to you. That's what makes people feel compelled about whatever business venture you're in. So so I think there's lots of opportunities for learning there. So if you wanted to jump in and start your own giving circle, it is not a difficult thing to do, first of all, and I will say that we've had people who have engaged with us who have kind of gone off and done some of their own versions of what we do. There's things that are simple as have a dinner party and ask everyone to bring $50 with them and make a decision at the end of that party where you want to donate that money to. If you want to do something slightly more formal, even though I hate to think about what we do as formal, but I guess it's a little more formal than just getting friends together. I would start there, though. I would start with, finding a group of people that you think are like-minded, that are interested in making some kind of impact. And then I think a big thing that we hashed through as we were starting is what the dollar amount should be. What actually makes sense. Okay, we wanted to raise enough money that it would be meaningful. We knew we weren't going to raise millions of dollars, but we were hoping to get around the $20,000 mark or somewhere in there. So A lot of it is a combination of the amount and then the number of members. So for us, the amount that made sense was that $400 a year, which we felt like was manageable. A lot of the people who were at the table initially, they worked for nonprofits. These are not people commanding huge salaries. But so it was manageable, but yet meaningful, right? So it meant like maybe you give up your latte every Monday, or maybe, right, that there's some sort of small sacrifice that you might be making to be able to give into the pool. So we liked that kind of combination. And then, once you determine that amount, then you're going to want to start doing things like figuring out how you would hear from organizations, what types of organizations you would even want to be giving money to. There's lots of models out there, and there's frankly a lot of research on the internet, so there's different things you can look at in terms of how people have organized this. Some organizations give based on a sort of topic area, so they decide, well, this year we want to give to an organization doing education, and next year we're going to give to an organization doing environmental practices. Personally, the Colectivo hasn't ever subscribed to that because we really like the variety, and we like the idea of being able to give to lots of organizations that hit lots of different civic areas and are engaged in different ways. So, we've given to community gardening, we've given to education, we've given to for-profits, we've given to arts organizations, really the whole gamut. And we just personally liked having that variety. But sometimes it's easier to sort of organize yourselves around a topic area, so that's an approach you could take. And then one of the things that we were able to establish fairly early on, and we were lucky because we had a member of our founding group that worked for this organization, but we were able to create a relationship with a fiscal agent. So the money that we give into our pool is actually held at this fiscal agent organization. It's called International Partners in Mission. The CEO of the organization is actually a member of the Colectivo, and their organization lined up really well with us, sort of kind of lucked out with this, because as an organization, they do the same kind of work we do, except for with collectives in South America and Central America. So they give money and resources to, a lot of times it's women-run businesses who are trying to create their own cooperatives, build up a business, generate some revenue for themselves. So that has been a huge boon for us because they already got what we were doing, and we're able to sort of house our money with them, for lack of a better word, and then they take care of cutting the checks for our grantees at the time that happens. I'm sure there are other ways to, you could set up bank accounts, things like that, but it's been really nice to have that fiscal agent who already is in sort of the process of doing that kind of work and handle that administrative